Dad canceled my wedding to fund my sister's honeymoon. I smiled and said, "Watch this." Dad's voice came through the phone like he was reading off a grocery list. "I canceled the venue, sophomore. We're not doing it anymore." For a second, I didn't understand the words as a sentence. I just stared at the little bouquet of sample flowers on my kitchen counter. White roses, baby's breath, eucalyptus, still wrapped in plastic from the florist appointment I'd been excited about an hour ago. My fingers went numb around my phone. I could hear him breathing, calm, waiting for me to accept it like it was weather. In the background, I heard my mother's muffled voice and the clink of dishes, like this was happening in the middle of a normal afternoon at their house. Then Dad added, almost casually, "Your sister needs the money more. We already paid a deposit, but I handled it. You'll understand." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. My face did that weird thing where it stays still, while your body goes hot all at once. "You canceled it?" I said, slowly, like maybe if I repeated it he'd correct himself. My mouth tasted like metal. I walked to the sink without realizing I was moving and turned the tap on, letting water run just so there was another sound in the room besides my heartbeat. "Dad, that's my wedding." I heard a laugh on the other end, not a happy laugh, more like a tired one, like I was being dramatic. "Sophie," he said, and that one word carried the whole family tone. "Don't start." I stared at the water streaming down, bright and pointless, and something settled in me so cleanly, it almost felt like relief. I pressed my thumb against the screen and said, soft but clear, "Okay, watch this." It was silent for a beat, and then I heard him shift, like he'd sat up. "What did you just say?" "Nothing," I said, still looking at the running water. My hands weren't shaking the way I expected. They felt steady, almost cold. "I'll call you back." Before he could answer, I ended the call. My phone screen went dark, reflecting my face, too calm, too pale. I stood there with the tap still running, and then I reached up and shut it off with a sharp twist like I could turn off the moment too. The kitchen was suddenly quiet enough that I could hear the fridge hum. I looked at the bouquet on the counter again, those stupid little white roses, and I felt this tight, breathless laugh push up in my chest. Not because it was funny, because if I didn't laugh, I might do something worse. It was a Tuesday in early spring when Dad did it, 2 months before my wedding. I'm 28, and I've spent most of my life being the reasonable daughter. My little sister, Tessa, is 25 and has always been the opposite. Bright, dramatic, the kind of person who cries in public and somehow makes strangers come for her. Growing up, people called her spirited. My parents called her sensitive. I called her exhausting, but only in my head, because saying it out loud would make me the villain. Tessa got attention the way some people get sunlight. If she was upset, the whole house rotated around it. Dad would go soft. Mom would scramble. If I was upset, I got told, "You're strong. You'll be fine." It sounds like a compliment until it's used as a reason to give you less, over and over, until you start wondering if strength is just what people call you when they don't want to show up. When I got engaged to my fiancé, Ben, my parents acted thrilled. Dad made a speech at dinner. Mom hugged me and cried. They offered to contribute to the wedding. As a gift, Dad said, proud like he was doing something noble. We didn't ask for a huge amount. Ben and I were paying most of it ourselves. But my parents insisted on covering the venue deposit and part of the catering because it's tradition and we want to do this for you. I believed them. I let myself believe it. We booked a vineyard venue about an hour out of the city. Nothing insane. Just pretty, warm wood, fairy lights, long tables. I signed the contract. My name was on it. Ben and I paid our part. My parents transferred the deposit from Dad's account because he wanted to handle it and said it would be easier. At the time, I didn't think twice. He's my dad. He was offering. I didn't know that handling it meant giving himself the power to take it away. 3 weeks before that phone call, Tessa had gotten married in a fast, messy whirlwind to a guy she'd been dating for under a year. Their wedding was small and chaotic and very Tessa, last-minute decorations, a playlist that cut out twice, her crying because the photographer didn't capture her aura. Everyone still acted like it was magical. Dad called it romantic. Mum said, "She's just so passionate." Then Tessa announced she needed a honeymoon. Not a weekend away. A real one. Bali, then somewhere else, maybe Europe. She wasn't sure yet, but she wanted it to be once in a lifetime. She posted Pinterest boards. She sent Mum screenshots. She called Dad late at night crying that her marriage didn't feel real without a honeymoon, and everyone else got one, and she deserved to start her life right. I know this because Mum told me, half embarrassed, like she was confessing. "She's been so emotional, Soph," she said. "You know how she gets." And I remember saying, "She can pay for it," because it was the truth. Mum's face tightened. "Don't be like that." That was the line always. Don't be like that. Don't be practical. Don't be fair. Don't be the person who points out the pattern. The day Dad called me, I drove straight to my parents' house. I don't know why I went alone. Ben offered to come, but something in me wanted to handle it myself. Like I still believed there was a version of this where Dad looked me in the eye and said, "I messed up." Like I could fix it if I spoke calmly enough. When I walked in, Mum was in the kitchen wiping a counter that was already clean. Dad was at the table with his laptop open, like he'd been preparing. Tessa was on the couch, legs tucked under her, scrolling on her phone like nothing had happened. She glanced up when I entered and smiled. Too sweet. "Hey, sophomore." I stood in the doorway for a second, letting the scene burn into my brain. My parents' house smelled like lemon cleaner and coffee. The afternoon light slanted through the blinds. Everything looked normal, which made me feel slightly insane. I walked to the table and put my phone down in front of Dad like it was evidence. "Explain," I said. Dad didn't flinch. He folded his hands. "I already did. We can't afford both." "We?" I repeated. My voice sounded strange in my own ears, too controlled. "You offered to pay part of mine." "And I did," he said. "Or I was going to. But Tessa needs it more right now." Tessa made a little sound like a sigh. "It's not like I asked you to cancel," she said, eyes still on her phone. "I just needed support." I turned to her. "You needed support, so Dad canceled my wedding venue?" She finally looked up, and her expression was calm in a way that made my skin crawl. "You'll still get married," she said. "Just not there. You can do something smaller. You're not like me. You don't care about that stuff." Mum jumped in quickly, hands fluttering. "Sophie, sweetheart, please don't take it that way. It's just money. We'll figure something out." "It's not just money," I said. My throat burned. "You canceled something I already booked. Without asking me." Dad pushed his chair back slightly, irritation flashing across his face. "Don't act like you're the only one who's contributed. Your sister has been through a lot." "What has she been through?" The words came out before I could soften them. Mum's eyes widened. Dad's face hardened. Tessa's mouth fell open in exaggerated hurt. "Wow," Tessa said, voice trembling on cue. "Okay, so you hate me." "I don't hate you," I said. "I'm tired of you." Dad slammed his palm lightly on the table, not enough to make a scene, just enough to assert control. "That's enough." I stared at him. "You canceled the venue. Did you get the deposit back?" He hesitated. A tiny pause, and I felt my stomach drop. Mum answered instead. Too quickly. "They said it's non-refundable, but Dad negotiated something." My heart started beating faster. Negotiated what? Dad looked down at his laptop, then back up like he decided to commit to the lie. "Credit. Toward another booking. A smaller package. It'll be fine." I blinked. "Whose name is the contract in?" Dad's jaw tightened. "Don't do that." "No," I said, stepping closer to the table. "Whose name is it in?" Mum's lips pressed together. Tessa shifted on the couch, suddenly alert. Dad said, "The venue account is under mine, because I paid the deposit." My vision sharpened, like the world had snapped into focus. "So, you put it under your name," I said slowly, "so you could control it." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I looked at Mum. And you let him. Mum's eyes filled with tears. Please, Soph. I held up a hand. Stop. Then I did the thing I'd promised on the phone. Watch this. I pulled my folder out of my bag, the one with all the documents I'd been collecting for weeks. Contracts, emails, receipts. I hadn't brought it to threaten them. I'd brought it because I'm a planner, because I like to have things organized. But standing there in their kitchen, watching Dad's calm face, I realized the only language he respected was paperwork. I opened the folder and slid the printed email chain across the table. Here's the original venue correspondence, I said. My name is on the inquiry. My details. My signature on the planning forms. I slid another page. Here's the invoice for my portion that I already paid. Here's the catering quote with my name on it. Here's the photographer deposit. Here's the florist deposit. I kept laying them out until the table looked like an audit. Dad stared at the papers, and for the first time, he looked uncertain. I kept my voice even. You can cancel a booking under your account, I said. But you can't cancel my wedding. And you can't move money around like that without consequences. If you used my payments to negotiate credit for another booking, that's fraud. If you redirected any refunds or credits, that's theft. Mum let out a small gasp. Sophie. Dad's face went red. Don't be ridiculous. I'm not being ridiculous, I said. I'm being clear. Tessa sat up fully now. Are you threatening Dad? She demanded, like I was the problem. Over a honeymoon? I looked at her, and I felt something cold settle in my chest. Over my life, I said. Dad stood up, towering like he used to when I was a teenager, and he wanted me to back down. You're going to destroy your family because your sister needed help. I met his eyes. You already destroyed it, I said. You just thought I would notice. Then I picked up my phone, opened my email, and called the venue on speaker, right there in front of them. My hands were steady. My voice was polite. Hi, I said. This is Sophie Whitaker. I need clarification on the cancellation and where the credit was applied. I have documentation of my payments and my name on the planning forms. I'm happy to forward everything. Dad's face drained. Mum covered her mouth. Tessa's eyes widened like she'd never seen me take up space before. The venue coordinator was calm, professional. She confirmed the cancellation had been processed under Dad's account and that a partial credit had been issued. Not a refund. She also confirmed something else. The credit had been applied to a booking made 2 days earlier. For Mr. Whitaker's daughter, she said. A travel package partner deposit. We were asked to transfer the credit to the partner booking. My stomach dropped, but I kept my voice steady. Which daughter? I asked, even though I already knew. There was a pause. Tessa, she said. The room went silent in a way that felt like pressure. Dad's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Mum made a strangled noise like she'd been punched. Tessa's face went pale, then flushed, then pale again. That's not, Dad started. I cut him off, quietly. Watch this, I said again, not to Dad this time, but to myself. I ended the call, took a photo of the documents on the table, and slid my folder back together with slow, careful movements. My heart was pounding, but my brain felt oddly calm, like I'd stepped into a version of myself I'd been avoiding. Dad's voice went hard. You're overreacting. I looked at him, and for once, I didn't soften. I'm not, I said. You used my wedding money to fund Tessa's honeymoon. That's what happened. And now you're going to fix it. Mum started crying quietly. Sophie, please. I turned to Mum. I love you, I said, and I meant it. But I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not the daughter you sacrifice because she won't scream. Tessa's eyes glittered with anger. You're being cruel, she whispered. I looked at her, and my voice stayed steady. You called me not like you as an excuse to take from me, I said. That's not sensitivity. That's entitlement. I walked out before anyone could stop me. My hands shook once I got to my car, and I sat there with my forehead against the steering wheel, breathing like I'd run upstairs. Then I called Ben and told him everything. He didn't say, calm down. He just said, "Okay, what do we do next?" Which is maybe why I'm marrying him in the first place. The next week was brutal. Dad tried to guilt me. Tessa tried to smear me to relatives. Mom kept calling, begging me to keep it in the family. I said no. I sent the venue coordinator my documentation. I forwarded every receipt. The venue confirmed in writing that the credit transfer was improper because it involved funds paid by me under planning documents tied to my event. They reversed the credit application back to the venue account and reissued it to the original booking details. It wasn't instant justice, and it didn't feel dramatic. It felt like paperwork and stress and a lot of late-night breathing through panic. And I changed the venue contract into my name. We rebooked. We kept the date. We adjusted a few things, but we didn't cancel. And we did something else. We uninvited Tessa, unless she could apologize in a real way, not the sorry you feel that way kind. She didn't. Dad told me I was tearing the family apart. I told him, "You did that the moment you chose her honeymoon over my marriage." My dad and I aren't speaking right now. Mom and I are trying. Some days she sounds like she understands. Other days she sounds like she's still hoping I'll fold and make it easy again. I don't know what our relationship will look like long term. I just know that for the first time in my life, I'm not letting their comfort cost me my dignity. And the weird thing is, I don't feel triumphant. I feel sad. I feel lighter. I feel like I finally stepped out of the role they wrote for me. Thanks for watching. And if you've ever had family take from you because they assumed you'd stay quiet, share your story in the comments. I'm not the only one, and neither are you.